First of all, thanks for Institute of Popular Diplomacy for the invitation, and I'm honored to be here. Given that we are just after lunch, I could just provide you some figures in order to make you more, asleep that you usually can be, after you have eaten. I would like just to spend few words in understanding to what extent the industrial system of the Western world, the rest of the world, can be sustainable or not. Just few figures. Let's imagine that in 2000, the number of euro of capital per employee in Europe was around 170,000 euros. 190,000 euros were the capital per employee in the United States, and only 40,000 euros in 2000 were the capital per employee in the rest of the world, in a number of selected countries that today we call emerging countries. Namely, I'm talking about Brazil, Russia, South Korea, Turkey, and China. In 2013, the capital per employee in Europe has increased for 170 to 200,000 euros, not so much in 13 years. In the United States, did a little bit better, from 190 to 240,000. In this selected emerging country, is moved for 40,000 euros to 140,000 euros. So you understand that there has been a dramatic improvement in the capital allocation in favor of the employees of countries other than the Western ones. This might be a not very significant situation, but it becomes very important when we analyze the issue of intangible capital and technology. If we look to the amount of application for new patents, and we can consider it as a sort of proxy for technologies, between the last 10 years, 2004 2013, we see that we had the traditional growth that the Western countries have enjoyed a certain growth, 17% per year in Germany, 12% per year in France, 9% per year in the United States, minus 7% per year in Italy. Italy is always, differentiating for everything that it does. 120% growth for South Korea, 120%, 41% for India, 21% for Brazil, 27% for Turkey. So what we understand is that the technological gap and the capital gap between the, let's say, oldest country and the rest of the world is closing very, very much. In fact, while in 2004, keeping stable the rate of investments in R&D, it would have been necessary for the emerging countries to take 16 years to reach the same technological endowment similar to that of Europe, Japan, United States. In 2013, this gap has closed from 16 to 10 years, which is an absolutely astonishing process. Because to fill more than 33 or 40% of the gap in 10 years, notwithstanding the growth in R&D which is taking place, even if at a lower pace, in the Western world, is an experience and a process that is being enjoyed by the emerging country, which is really difficult to not to appreciate and not to be astonished about it. Actually, therefore, we see that today in the world there is a much wider distribution of technology and knowledge than 10 or 15 years ago. And basically for three reasons. The first is obviously the process of globalization, everybody knows it, but more than globalization, broadly speaking, we should talk about the process of liberalization of capital movements, which is the most important reason why technology has moved from one country to the other one. I have a friend of mine, which was my colleagues at MIT. He was a physician, he was coming from India, and he got €1 million from his father, €1 million from the Citibank, and he invented at MIT new semiconductors, much speedier than others, and now he is managing his own company in India, close to Bangalore, and nobody could, forbid it to do it, and he got money from the American banks to establish a company in northern India. The second reason, which is less known but is interesting to remember, is the integration between military and civilian technology. For many years, military technology has been considered coming first, and then civilian technology was a sort of byproduct of military one, not anymore. You want an example, telecommunications. In the wireless telecommunication, the civilian investments for this stuff has been so large in the last 20 years that military telecommunications could only, take advantage of what civilians have done and to insert some, secret codes or other protections, but could not replicate it. With this integration with civilian and military technology, you understand that basically it has been set aside one of the causes of the segregation of technology for the protection of technology for security use. The third reason you can easily understand, given that we are here exactly in these days, is the end of the Cold War. When technologies was considered a very, probably one of the most important instruments and tools for managing this war, and at the end of the Cold War had, of course, relinquished barriers and limitations to the spread out of technology. This is bringing back us to what had happened in the last basically 200 years. Because if we look to what had happened starting with the first industrial revolution, what we see that all the history of the last 200 years can be seen as an history of following and technological paradigms which were kicking out one after the others. Think about steam machine, fuel engine, electricity, oil and chemical products, microelectronics today. Any one of this paradigm has been defeated after 20, 30, 40, 50 years, depends, to the second one. And the present paradigms was affecting all the structure of the company. Of the industry. And in fact, one of the reasons of the industrial crisis of several Western countries comes from the fact that they're not being able to capture the present technological paradigm, which is microelectronics. This is important because we understand that technology is now spreading around the world, but still the world is moving according to a number of paradigms which are, which are following one another. Therefore, these two things put together is bringing us to ask some important questions about the sustainability of technology and resiliency of industry. The first question is, are we on the edge of the new technological paradigms? Well, I'm not a scientist. I am a manager, and now I'm a university professor, so I'm not the most, the most qualified person to give an answer. But many technicians and many experts of technology believes that the breakthrough momentum of the microelectronics is over. That what has to be really invented was invented. That all the new things that you say today, every time with the stuff that you have here in front of you and others, are basically, applications or variations, but the breakthrough momentum is close to be finished, and therefore in the next 10 to 15 years, which is quite a very narrow period of time, if we consider, the course of history, we should see a new technological paradigm. What it will be, frankly, I have no idea. Some people believe that will be connected with robotics on one side, and bioengineering on the other side. But, I don't take responsibility for this because I'm not able to make any forecast about that. But it's very likely that we are not very far from. So this is dramatically important for industry because who will be the industry which will be able to be resilient, therefore able to survive the next crisis? Those who will be ready to capture to embed in their own products the technologies coming from new technological standards. The second question that we should ask, we should give an answer is, to the extent that this is true, where this will take place and who will dominate it. Until the last paradigm, it was Pacific, it was evident that only Western countries were able to manage this process. Not anymore, as I demonstrated you with the few figures I quoted at the beginning of my speech. I do believe that in the next 20 years, we will see a huge, fierce competition between not only companies, but even governments, in order to keep the industrial system of our single countries to the highest level of technological frontier. I'm expecting that, notwithstanding the forecast of some of the proposal of some lawyers, of very important lawyers, about the relinquish of barrier for patents, for the protection of intellectual property, we will see exactly the contrary. There will be a very significant segregation of technology, and also there will be a very significant intervention of governments in order to give the industrial system the possibility to get all the possible technological advantages about it. And this brings us to the third question. The third question is, what will be the role of the governments? Everybody say, I mean, all the economic theories say that usually government spending crowds out private investments, public debt versus private investment, so on and so forth. Yes, 5 minutes, I will be in time. In R&D, it is exactly the contrary. The state and government support acts as equity, an equity vis-à-vis a lender, and therefore the government pays for the cost of uncertainty, which is connected to any technological development. Therefore, it's very likely that governments will commit a lot, or I say clever and smart governments, not everybody, governments will commit a lot to invest in technology, and particularly to support the technological choices and selection and investments of the industrial system. Fourth question, there are 5, so you see the reason why I will be in time. Fourth question, what will be the consequences of all of this, of employment and unemployment? 2 things which we have to consider. First, usually there is a lack of of adequacy of human capital at the beginning of any new technological era of age. The closer, or the more adequate will be the human capital at the very beginning, the lower will be the consequences of employment. But the second thing we have to consider is that traditionally the effect on employment and the labor market of new technological changes are similar to the J curve of the devaluation of currency, a J curve of balance of payment, when you, not today, many years ago, was able to devaluate currency. It's the sense that there is usually a starting period where employment is going down and employment is rising, simply because human capital is not sufficiently adequate in terms of education to the new paradigm, and then you have an uprise. So what is important for any industrial system is to prepare, in terms of education, their people in order to face the new system. Last but not least, how sustainable will be the industrial systems vis-à-vis these changes. I do believe that here, in the last minutes we have to consider 2 different things. One is sustainability, one is resilience. Sustainability is something which is important because industrial systems have to be compliant with environmental issues, social issues, corporate responsibility issues, and therefore they are meeting all the requirements that a very complex and articulated society is asking them. But it's not sufficient. if you don't put sustainability, if you don't put the concept of resiliency alongside the one of sustainability, you will risk to have an industrial system which will suffer a very long and probably unarrestable period of decline. Resilience means the capability to maintain the role of the specific industry, notwithstanding crisis both in demand, supply, and production's structure of that specific industrial sectors. Resilience implies the fact that industries will be able to sustain their technological progresses, and they'll be able to be always one step ahead with respect to any other industrial system in order to maintain the role of that specific domestic enterprise groups or domestic enterprises in the technological development process. Thank you.